Looks like we have a good amount of people, so let's get started.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We're going to talk about DC parking cash-out law, compliance options, and how to report. My name is Beatrice Stephen Pons. I'm an employer outreach coordinator at GoDC Go, and I'm joined today by our deputy program manager, Jessica Lynn. So as mentioned, and some of you may have heard this already, we don't have a comment box, but if you have any questions during the presentation, please share them under Q&A, and one of us will try to answer, but there will be time at the very end to clarify anything and ask additional questions. We are recording this, and we will share the recording afterwards, as well as the slides and other resources in a follow-up email. All right. So here's an overview of how we'll be spending our time together today. First, we're going to talk about what is GoDC Go for those of you who may need a refresher or have yet to work with us. And then we're going to go over an overview of the law. We're going to talk through 3 different compliance options, how to report one of those options, as well as the free services and support that GoDC Go offers in navigating all of that. Finally, we're going to talk about our Transportation All-Star program, which is how we recognize employers who provide particularly notable programs to encourage sustainable travel at their worksite. Finally, we'll have some time for questions. GoDC Go is an initiative of the District Department of Transportation. We're a one-stop shop for everything sustainable transportation, and we offer free resources and services to DC organizations and commuters. DC parking cash-out law refers to the Transportation Benefits Equity Amendment Act of 2020. It is an amendment to Sustainable DC Omnibus Amendment Act of 2014, and its goals are ultimately to manage traffic congestion in the region's roadways, as well as improve the livability and air quality of the DC region. If this law is applicable to you, then you must comply and file your status with DDOT by January 15th, 2026. So this law is applicable to DC employers with 20 or more covered employees who offer free or subsidized parking. A covered employee is a part-time or full-time employee where at least 50% of their working time is in the District of Columbia. Employers who owned or continue to, employers who owned and continue to own their parking before October 1st, 2020 qualify for an exemption. Employers with a parking lease that began before October 1st, 2020, as well as universities and other organizations with existing and improved campus plans, both of them are exempt until their lease or their plan expires. At that point in time, it is important to begin complying with one of the compliance options we're going to discuss, even if reporting is due on January 15th, which may come a bit later. Either which way, if you're an exempt employer, you'll still need to report your status to DDOT. Okay, now let's talk through the 3 different compliance options. You only need to choose one. First, we have offer a clean air transportation fringe benefit. Second, we have create a transportation demand management plan. And third, we have pay a clean air compliance fee. Okay, so option 1. Every employee that is offered a parking benefit should be offered the clean air fringe benefit under this option. And this benefit can be used towards transit or van pool, and the amount will be determined by the median market value of parking in the area, not necessarily what you might be offering as a subsidy for parking. And employers must offer the fringe benefit. However, if employees choose not to accept it, that does not have any bearing on compliance. However, if employees do decide to accept the fringe benefit, in that case, they must forego their parking in order to accept it. So the fringe benefit must be equal to or greater than the market value of the parking benefit. How you would calculate this is you would take the median of publicly available monthly parking rates at facilities within a quarter mile from your work site. If there aren't publicly available rates within a quarter mile, you would expand that distance to a half mile. If there are no publicly available rates within that half mile, then you can use $175 per month as the quote unquote market value in this case. So here's an example. Oh, can we go back? Thank you. Here's an example of the market value calculation. In this instance, we have the radius of a quarter mile, and we can see on the side that there's different monthly rates available. So we have like 280 and we have 300. We would take the median of these different listed publicly available rates and and that would be what was used for the clean air fringe benefit. You can use Spot Hero or whatever platform you'd like in terms of finding the publicly available monthly parking rates. However, whichever way you choose to go about this, make sure you're taking lots of screenshots, putting together an Excel where you'd have your calculations, and otherwise documenting how you are calculating the market value, because all of that will be important in terms of submitting within the reporting portal. Okay, so once you've calculated how much the fringe benefit should be worth, you will then need to notify your employees that you're offering a new benefit. GoDCGo can provide an email template to kind of help with that administrative concern. And from there, you can also take an intake form link from the reporting dashboard to send to employees. Employees can fill out that form to either say if they're going to accept or decline the benefit. If the employees decide to decline, then they can keep their parking benefit, and continue on as normal. If they decide to accept, then they would give up their parking benefit and receive the fringe benefit in its place. When employees are submitting this form, they're going to include an estimate of how much of the fringe benefit they would use for transportation. So if the employee's estimate is less than the full fringe benefit, let's say they decide that they're going to walk to work, so they're not going to use any of it, the remainder of that benefit must be made up either through additional compensation or an increased contribution to the employee's health coverage. So once all the employees have completed the form, then the fringe benefit will be distributed monthly through existing channels. So that could be your commuter benefits provider or through payroll. All right, now for the second option, create a TDM plan. TDM stands for Transportation Demand Management. It uses strategies to incentivize efficient use of the transportation infrastructure system. And basically, since using since driving alone to work takes up more space and moves less people than, say, other options like bike share or public transit or even carpooling. In your TDM plan, and you could see on the slide some different TDM tools that could be a part of that, basically just help to incentivize reducing driving as much as possible as like the default commute mode to work. So your TDM plan in this instance would be a list of strategies and a timeline for reducing the number of employee commute trips made by car. So to comply, you would either need to have your driving alone as a commute mode decrease by 10% each year, or maintain a rate of driving alone that is at or under 25%. So if at your organization, 25% or less are already driving alone, you would still need to submit a plan just to document that. So regardless of whether you're at 25% threshold or not, you would complete a commuter survey. We also provide email templates to notify employees about the survey, and you can also request a custom survey through us as well. The reporting portal also includes a unique survey link, so you can use that. And the advantage of that is that you would be able to have the analytics in one consolidated place, but you are also welcome to create your own survey. If you go the option of creating your own survey, you would just need to make sure that you include 3 required questions. So these are the 3 required questions. So I'll take a moment here. As you can see, the first question says, like, during a typical 5-day work week, how do you commute? So this is helpful because it can help collect data more accurately, especially for work sites where you might be in a hybrid schedule or people might go to different offices and things like that. And then for our second and third questions, this one talks through what transportation options people would consider changing towards and what would make them interested in changing towards a different commute option. Okay. If it's your first time submitting a TDM plan, DDOT will have 60 days to review, and they will either approve or deny. If they approve, then you would have 90 days to implement the plan. And if it's denied, then you'd have 30 days to make changes and resubmit. If in that instance, it happens to be denied again, in that case, you would go and implement a different compliance option. And then every year in the case that it is approved, you would submit the previous year's mode split across different transportation options by January 15 to DDOT. This submission will be how DDOT tracks compliance with the requirements of the plan to either decrease by 10% each year or stay at or under 25%. Okay, so if your drive alone rate is reduced by 10% from the previous year, congratulations, you met the goal. You would just submit the data in the portal and continue on. If your drive alone rate is at or below 25%, similarly, you would continue to maintain that rate or reduce it if you're able, and you would continue to be compliant. In the off chance that your drive alone rate is not reduced by 10% from the previous year, you will have an additional 180 days to attempt to reduce the drive alone rate. In this instance, you can work with us at GoDCGo to try to implement different strategies and find a custom solution for your work site. In this instance, you then take another survey and submit proof of the 10% reduction if we are able to achieve that. If for some reason that you're not able to reduce by that 10% from the previous year, even after employing additional strategies, you would then select another compliance option and submit in the reporting portal. Okay, our third compliance option. You would pay a clean air fee. In this instance, you would pay DDOT $100 per employee offered parking benefits per month. You would submit proof of payment to DDOT in the portal, and payments must be made in 12-month increments in advance. Essentially, you would pay for the year in advance. One thing to point out is that removing parking benefits is the quickest and most cost-effective way of complying with the law. And if you choose this option, you would still need to report your exemption to DDOT, but you would be reporting every 2 years. Okay, now I'm going to pass everything off to Jessica Lynn to take it away and talk about how to report.
Thanks, Beatrice. That was great. So we're going to talk about reporting now. Please feel free to continue asking your questions in the Q&A feature, and we'll do our best to get back to you as soon as possible. If there's anything that we missed, we will share our contact information at the end. So feel free to reach out to us. We will also try and get an FAQs out to people with our recap. Okay, so thanks everyone for your questions. Keep it up. We love it. And now let's get into reporting. So like we said earlier, who is required to report? So this year we're reporting for 2026. So employers who have 20 or more covered employees and they selected the TDM plan previously, you're going to have to report again because that's an annual report. And additionally, if you paid 1 year of the Clean Air Compliance fee last year, it's time to pay again or choose a new compliance option. And then if you didn't report your compliance yet, this is the right time to start. And then lastly, if you had an exemption that expired, let's say you had a campus plan or a lease that has ended or it's time's up, it's been 2 years, it's time to report, you must also submit by January 15th, 2026. That is a hard and fast deadline. So sometimes January 15th has fallen on a Sunday. I would recommend you get it done before that weekend so you don't have to worry about reporting on a Sunday. So January 15th is the big deadline. Let's keep that in mind. The reporting portal, by the way, will also open up for you to submit this year's compliance on October 15th. So by this time next week, until January 15th, you have all that time to submit your reporting, okay? In order to report your compliance, you will need your tax ID number, so your EIN. If you don't know, you can find that out from the IRS. All you need to do is visit this website, which is, well, we will drop that in the Q&A section, but we will send it out in our recap as well. It is hosted on Commutify. They're contracted to DDOT. And so you will log in and you will create your account if you haven't before, or log in if you've reported previously. And it's very simple to create your account. You just need your company name, your contact name to create your sign in. And then you'll fill out the rest of your company profile once you've gotten into the portal. So on the first page, this is kind of like the home page, the dashboard. From the compliance menu, you see the drop down at the top. It says year 2024 in this screenshot, but it will say year 2026 starting October 15th. And if you sign in even right now, it should say 2025. I apologize, this is an old screenshot. But that drop down menu will give you the year that you can start reporting for. If you are preparing for January 15th, 2026, please choose year 2026 starting October 15th. It's very simple. You can just fill out your company profile. This is information that you likely already have. It's your EIN number or DC business license number, your business name, your business address, your contact name, email, phone number, etc. A cool thing is on the right side, you can see which required fields you have filled out. So you can see the green check marks. This person has filled out all the required fields and they did not fill out business website. So that's just a feature on the site. And then you will also be asked what transportation incentives you offer your employees. This is not related to your compliance, but just answer it for the additional information that it provides to DDOT. And then lastly, at the bottom, you'll be asked for your DC employee count. So this is the number of covered employees you have. So if you have, we went over covered employees earlier, it's anyone who is working 50% or more of their time in DC. Part-time or full-time. And on the next page, you will choose your compliance option. So you can choose either the Clean Air Transportation Fringe Benefit, which is the one that's selected in the screenshot here. That is option 1. So if you're going to do the park and cash out option, you will choose that. And if you're choosing to do a TDM plan instead, which remember that comes with the survey, then you will choose the middle option on the top row here. And then on the right, you'll see pay a clean air compliance fee. If you would rather pay the $100 per employee per month who is offered a parking benefit, then you would choose this option on the right. Down at the bottom, we have report an exemption. So anyone who is trying to file for an exemption, you may choose the option at the bottom. If at any point you need to know what documents are required for that selection that you're making, there is a little caret underneath or above each select button that says documents needed to report for this compliance option. You can expand that caret really quickly just to check what documentation you will need for that compliance option. Okay. You only need to choose one of these, so you do not need to choose multiple. Please do not choose multiple. Okay, I see the questions are pouring in, so thank you for that. If you're reporting for a clean air fringe benefit, this is what you will see when you select the clean air fringe benefit option. On the side, on the left side, we just have a call out that reminds you what documents you need to report your compliance, but that won't show up in the page. You will just see it when you get into this website. The required fields will tell you what details you need. For example, the first thing you'll be asked is, do you offer a parking benefit? And you'll choose yes, free parking, or yes, reimbursed parking, subsidized parking, a combination of those, or no, or other. And then you'll be asked what parking benefit is offered. Please provide those details. I know the screenshot is a little bit small, but I do find that these questions are very straightforward. And so if you are interested in looking through this and you're not sure whether you will proceed with this option, you can feel free to select it, browse it, but you don't have to submit until the very end. So you can feel free to choose this option and browse the questions, what's required, and then click the back button. Okay. Additionally, you'll be asked the number of employees that are offered free, subsidized, or reimbursed parking. And then below that, it says at the bottom, the number of employees that are using free, subsidized, or reimbursed parking. It then goes on to ask you the documentation of how you calculated the monthly value of parking. So earlier, Beatrice covered that you can use Spy Hero or another tool, but make sure that you take either screenshots or documentation or a spreadsheet of how you came up with your monthly value of parking, because you will need to upload it here. GDOT will ask you how you came up with that number, your value for your fringe benefit. So you'll demonstrate that in this section. And then you'll be asked, how were employees notified about the new clean air fringe benefit? To which you can respond with either poster or announcement in break rooms, email to all covered employees, an all hands meeting, or other. And then lastly, you'll be asked to upload a copy of that notification to your covered employees. Okay, so I do find that most of this, when you're getting to this point in reporting, you may find it pretty straightforward. But if you have questions, again, please feel free to reach out to GoDCGo. We're happy to help. Our contact will be shared at the end. And now we're going to move on to the second option, which was creating a transportation demand management plan, or TDM plan for short. This is what it looks like when you choose the TDM plan. So you'll be asked to fill out your contact name, contact email, and then you'll be asked parking benefit questions. So do you own your parking garage facility? Oh, I see we have a moving image here. Great. So you'll fill out, do you lease your parking garage or facility? Do your employees receive free parking? And yes, some of these questions expand depending on how you answer them. So you may be asked, how many employees are using it? How much is the subsidy that you provide? Do you reimburse parking? But again, these questions are somewhat straightforward, so I won't spend too much time going through what you see on the screen. This is how you fill out for the TDM plan. More importantly, I know many of you are wondering, what about the survey? So on the next page is when you will be able to report your survey results. So you can either use a custom survey that's already made for you here in the reporting portal. In the middle, you'll see send a survey. This section that's titled send a survey has a custom survey link already created for you. And all you have to do is copy that link. There's a button next to the middle text box that says copy that link. And you can directly send that out to your covered employees and get their feedback. Their responses will go straight into your dashboard. So you will be able to view your survey responses right here in the site. If you choose not to use this custom survey that's provided in the website, that is okay. Remember earlier, Beatrice covered the 3 required survey questions. You are welcome to make your own survey. You just have to include those 3 required survey questions with those survey answers to those questions. So exactly as it's prescribed, you must also include them in the survey that you create. You're welcome to ask questions beyond those 3 required ones, but at least those 3 required ones have to show up in your own survey. Just to save you the trouble, we have the option for you to use this customized survey that you can copy the link for, but we understand that some of you may choose to make your own survey. We just wanted to make it a little easier for you all and save you a step, as we know this can be a lot. Right underneath that is where you report your survey results. So this is what it looks like in just a second here. So for each mode, driving alone, taking transit, walking, biking, van pooling, carpooling, teleworking to get to work, this is where you will populate your results. If you use the custom survey, it will automatically divvy out the modes and give you directly the numbers you need to plug in here. That's why I recommend it. I do find it a little simpler than creating your survey, but again, the option is yours. And I'm going back for a second to show you the response rate, the required response rates. In this blue callout box, we are showing you that the law requires a certain response rate based on the size of your organization. So the more employees you have, the lower your required response rate. It says that if you have fewer than 50 employees, you have a 90% minimum response rate that's required. If you have 50 to 99 employees, it's 84%. 100 to 249 is a 70% required response rate. And then it goes up to 50%, 30%, 37%, and then 20%. So I won't read it all, you can see it on the screen. And we'll also send out these slides afterwards, but do keep that in mind. The last step for the TDM plan is you'll need to create that plan. So you'll need to include some strategies that you're committing to implement in order to reduce that drive alone rate that we just calculated in the survey. So these are some of the options that you'll find. Is my screen still sharing?
Yes.
Okay. These are some general strategies that you can find. So offering pre-tax benefits or subsidies. On the right, it says alternative commute day. You can also see the expected impact highlighted in color in the bottom corner of each strategy. And it's very simple. You just choose select for those strategies that you plan to commit to implementing, and then they will show up on the right. When you click select, you'll be able to choose a date, so a month and a year, for when your goal is to implement those strategies. If you want to install bike racks or lockers, like in this screenshot, this person has committed to installing bike racks or lockers by July 2024. So they can enter that into their selected strategies, and that will become part of their TDM plan. Once you've selected at least 3, then the continue button will become accessible in green. And then you can move forward with reviewing your TDM plan. And so this is what the example company has come up with. This is their final TDM plan. And you see they get a chance to review it before hitting the big green button. They can even print it out and show it to leadership before they submit. And it's just a nice feature where you can pause and review what you've submitted before, or what you plan to submit before you actually do so. And again, at any point, you can go back through the steps. If you choose that you don't want to go through with the TDM plan after all, you haven't submitted yet. So this is a good recap page to just pause and review with your organization that you feel comfortable submitting this. And then once you hit submit, you'll get a confirm page, which I find helpful. And lastly, for the clean air compliance fee, this option is quite straightforward. You have chosen to pay the District Department of Transportation $100 per month for each employee who is offered a parking benefit, but payment must be made in 12-month increments. So let's say you have 5 employees that you want to cover with a clean air compliance fee because you're offering them free parking. If you choose to do so, you would have to pay, let's see, 100, 1,200 for a year for each of those employees. So that's 6,000. 100 times 12 times 5, 6,000. Hopefully that makes sense. And then you'll have to go through these required questions. It says, what is the amount that's paid to the DC treasurer? It's paid to DDOT. If any of you paid last year and had an issue with your checks, do apologize. The issue, we believe, has been resolved now. If you are still having concerns, please feel free to email us. But you will mail that check to the District Department of Transportation. Hopefully that is all updated. The number of employees who are offered free, subsidized, or reimbursed parking is the next question. And then you will also be asked the number of employees for whom the employer is paying the $100 clean air compliance fee per employee per month. Hopefully that's not confusing. The address here has been updated. I apologize for the old screenshot, but you will be mailing the check to the District Department of Transportation. Once you're in the portal, there will be the correct address. Now moving on to exemptions. If you are reporting an exemption, you'll need to provide the documentation according to your exemption. So employers who own their parking before October 1st, 2020, they'll provide that documentation of the date they owned the parking or purchased it. Parking lease will need your original lease, and no contemplated lease extensions will be considered for exemption. And then if you have a campus plan or TDM plan, you'll need documentation of that. Work with DDOT if you believe you have one. And then employers who don't offer free or subsidized or reimbursed parking, or you stopped offering as of this time frame, or because of this law, that is okay. You just need to provide documentation of this decision. So either an employee handbook where it says that you don't offer free, subsidized, or reimbursed parking, or some official staff notification that goes out that says we no longer offer this parking benefit, or a certified letter for those organizations from, let's say, the C-suite, the director of HR, an official certified letter that says we do not offer free or subsidized or reimbursed parking, something of that nature. And you'll upload the documentation in the section where you report for your exemption. This is what it looks like. You'll be asked to upload the document there in the section in the middle, and then you can briefly describe your exemption that you're applying for. Once you fill that out, the submit button will turn green, and then you will receive confirmation on the next page that you have submitted. So here is the link to the reporting portal that I've been referring to this entire time. We can perhaps share that around. It will also come out in the recap. So please feel free to write it down or grab it or just wait for the recap. We will make sure that you have this information one way or the other. And then if you have any questions about the law or scenarios that you believe requires some extra consideration, you can feel free to reach out to parkingcashout@dc.gov. For technical issues like web support or some things bugging out on the website, feel free to reach out to dccashout@commutify.com. Again, we will share these links. If this is a lot to remember, please just remember Go DC Go, and we will happily connect you to the right people and do our best to get your issues resolved. So it's okay, like, to come to us. We will connect you to the right people. So last thing about Go DC Go Employer Services is that we pretty much want to be your one-stop shop for all sustainable transportation resources, and even just offering commuter benefits in general, maximizing the use of your commuter benefits. So we offer complimentary consultative services. If you have questions about anything we covered today, feel free to reach out. Beatrice and I are available, and we do that with no cost. If you're not familiar with Go DC Go, you can meet with us to talk about your benefits or talk about complying with DC ordinances such as parking cash out. No cost at all. We are an initiative of the District Department of Transportation, so we are here to help you with your transportation benefits as employers. We also help you with commuter surveys, understanding your staff, trying to figure out best practices. And also, if you are interested in offering Capital Bike Share corporate membership, that's another thing that we can help you out with. And of course, free brochures, maps, and custom materials. So if you're interested in, say, the DC bike map or park and ride maps, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to host an event with you, a tabling event or a transportation fair where we come on site and promote your benefits and build enthusiasm for sustainable transportation, maybe even help reduce your drive alone rate. We can come on site and talk to your staff about ways they can commute around DC. So all that we do for free. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you're interested in our services. And if you already do have a transportation or a robust transportation commuter benefits program, we would love to recognize you. Or if you're working towards getting there, you may also qualify to become a transportation all-star. So please let us know if you're interested. There's a fun awards ceremony happening in the spring if you do get designated either as bronze, silver, gold, or platinum. If you're curious where you land, it is non-committal. Feel free to reach out to us or visit our website where we talk about the Transportation All-Star program, and we'll tell you which criteria you need to fall under which tier. The higher your tier from bronze, silver, gold to platinum, the more perks. So if you reach platinum status, for example, we will cover 1 year of best workplaces for commuters membership for your organization. That's a great honor and it helps with employee recruitment and retention. It's just a great program overall. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to us. Yeah, highly recommend it. Lastly, this is our contact information. So if you have further questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Beatrice is fantastic. She will have questions and answers for your questions and all the right things. And that is it for our presentation. So we will take a look at the Q&A. And yeah. Am I still sharing the screen? Anything to add?
Okay. No, that's great. Thank you so much. I know we have a lot of good questions in the chat. So maybe, is there any question that you want to take live then that I have yet to answer?
Sure, we can just go through them. So Ryan Breen says, for the first required question, I assume this is referring to the survey questions, the 3 required survey questions. How would you guide employees who use multiple methods of transportation for a single commute? For example, driving to the metro, then taking the metro, and then walking. That's a great question. So for the custom survey, I believe there is language in there that says the primary method of commuting, and that might be related to, if I recall correctly, the commute method that covers the longest distance. So if you're only driving a short bit to the metro and then you're taking the metro for 45 minutes and then it's a 5-minute walk to the office, we would encourage you to put down metro. So it is the primary mode that would cover the greatest leg of the trip. I hope that helps. And that should be in the language of the survey, the custom survey. If you're creating your own, obviously, then you might want to provide a little bit more direction there. You might get the same question from your own staff. Mike Lowry, do you get a credit for electric vehicles? Unfortunately not. That's not within the law at this time, but that is a great question. And I understand the thought behind it. It is not written into the law, so there's no credit for electric vehicles.
And then the compliance options. Okay, so then from Chad, I see compliance options only apply to 5 employees who are receiving the free parking. So any employee who is receiving a parking benefit, like if you are doing, for example, the first compliance option of the fringe benefit, you would provide that to anyone that you were providing the parking benefit. Jess, do you have anything else that you would add to that?
Yeah, just that pretty much covers it. So this was in regards to the question earlier about the example where you have 100 employees, so you're covered and you must report. You have 5 that receive free parking. So if you're choosing the fringe air, the clean air fringe benefit option, which is option 1, parking cash out, then those employees that are offered free parking or any parking benefit, not just free parking. If you're offering subsidized parking elsewhere, employees who are offered parking benefits would also be offered the parking cash out option, so the fringe benefit. Those employees that are, let's say you're only having 5 employees receive free parking, no others, then those 5 employees are the ones that have the option. to cash
And
out.
then I guess if you went in the direction of paying the clean air fee, then that would be per employee that is receiving monthly parking benefits per month.
Right. And then obviously, if you choose the TDM option, you're applying strategies that you choose and you commit to. So that may not just affect those 5 employees, depending on the strategies that you choose. But for the fringe air benefit and the clean air compliance fee, you're only required to apply this to those 5 employees in your example that receive the free parking. Hope that helps. Cliff Smith, last year there was a mix-up with where the checks were being sent for the clean air compliance fee. Was this updated? Yes, apologies for the mix-up. There was some shift, I believe, in the structure for where DC government was housing things. And so the mix-up has been clarified. The checks that are being sent for the clean air compliance fee will be sent to DDOT and handled there. The address is updated in the reporting portal. So if you're choosing to comply through the clean air compliance fee, please go through the steps, look for the address that is on the website. It should say the District Department of Transportation. That is correct. You will not be sending it to the DC Treasurer. That's a great question. Again, apologies for the mix-up. Thank you so much.
Okay, but from an anonymous attendee, we have the question, if we're exempt, I'm assuming, will we be notified when it's up for renewal? So I guess is there a notification? I believe there is like a notification, but also it's every 2 years if you're exempt. So if you know that you last filed perhaps last year, then you wouldn't need to file this upcoming year, and it would be for 2027.
Yeah, if you're definitely sure that you're exempt, then there's no issues there. If you're unsure or you want to play it safe, feel free to email us and we'll double check on your case. But I do believe that communications will go out from DDOT soon if you must renew or if you haven't adjusted your previous submission according to DDOT's guidelines. So there will be communications going out shortly, but I totally understand if you are trying to be diligent about your part. Better safe than sorry. If you're not sure, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll connect with DDOT and make sure we find out on your case whether you are covered or not.
All right, Eduardo, from Eduardo, we have, my company is registered, but the person who was submitting reports is no longer working with us. Do I need to register the company again to get my own access?
That's a great question, Eduardo. So there is a process to shift over the management of the account, administrative rights, if you will, from the previous owner to you, for example, or someone else at the company. You will just need to email either GoDCGo or the technical contact that we had up earlier, which was DC Cashout, with the old account holder's name and email, and then the new administrative manager names and their email. That's pretty much it. We should be able to handle it on the back end. Also, let us know your company name. We might make assumptions about it, but of course, it's always better to be official. So send us your company name and make sure we get the right people switched over. Thank you.
All right, so from now we have, if an employee has subsidized parking but does not work in DC 50% of the time, should they be included in the total? So I'm assuming you're talking about the total of covered employees, and covered employees only applies to people who are spending at least 50% of their working time in DC. So if that's not the case, then they would not count towards the covered employee total. Okay. Okay, this seems to be maybe in regards to a previous thread. From Robin, the requirement seems counterintuitive. they're not using, okay, so I think this question is asking about if employees are remote and living in DC, they're not using transportation. So how is that, why are they counted towards like covered employees? So I would just say like it's great if people are, remote working, that means they're not traveling and, congesting up our roadways. That's all completely valid. However, they're still living and working within DC. So this is just a DC law, so it's applicable to DC workers. So I hope that that helps and answers that question of why it's applicable to DC workers. But just, do you have anything else that you'd like to add for this question?
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of the state of things. This is a law. The way the law is written is just that for covered employees, if they are living in DC and living and working in DC, then they are covered. But perhaps if a majority of your workers are remote but living within DC, then the TDM plan is a good option for you. So you don't have to change too much about your structure. You wouldn't have to pay the fee. So there might be some better options that are more suitable for your staff and your workforce, depending on what work schedules look like for you. But this is the way the law is written. So be that as it may, yeah, covered employees, if they're living and working in DC, they are still counted.
All right, I hope that helps. And then now we have another question from Chad. If you are paying the $100 fee, are you paying for the previous year or the upcoming year? Okay, so when you're filing before January 15th, 2026, you're essentially filing to be compliant for the upcoming year. So I hope that is helpful. Okay. So we have an anonymous attendee who says, I reported option 1 for the company in 2025. Do I need to report again for 2026? So no, you do not. For the compliance option, the first compliance option, which is the clean air fringe benefit, that operates on a 2-year cycle. So if you reported in 2025, then you would report in 2027.
Next one is, does the website tell me if we are compliant already or not? By the website, I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to, but we'll say if it's the reporting portal that you log into, once you're there, at the top, there will be small text that says what your status is. I'm going to flash back to that page really quickly so everyone knows what I'm talking about. But when you log into your dashboard, that homepage will say under compliance status where you're at, whether it's not submitted or it's under review. Goodness, that took a long time. Sorry. So if you'll see right here in the middle, between the drop-down menu and the green button that says submit compliance, there's a gray circle, and next to it, it says not submitted. So that tells you your current status is that you have not submitted for year 2024, 26, whatever you choose on the drop-down menu. Please, everyone choose year 2026 if you're reporting for this upcoming deadline. So if you choose year 2026, it'll say not submitted when you first start out. That status will change as you move through the process. It may say under D.dot review. It may tell you you've submitted, you're compliant. So you can check on that part of the website. And then if you're not sure after that, if you still have questions about what that means, you can feel free to reach out to us. Okay.
Okay. Does this still only apply to leased parking? So no, it's a parking benefit. So if you are providing a spot in a garage that you might own, this would still be relevant to your organization. Do you have anything else to add here?
I do not. Sorry, I'm working on another question from the bottom.
Fair. All right. So it seems like the last two questions that I see, if your employees don't come in 50% of the time, are you exempt? If you pay for their parking when they do, is that okay? We have that from Jennifer. And then from Amanda, we have, if we provide a parking benefit, pay for a spot in a garage, but they're hybrid and only come to the office DC once a week. Okay, so for both of these questions, if your employees are spending 50% of their working time in the district, whether that's in the office that may be in DC or not, then they would be a covered employee and you would need to pick out a compliance option. If they are spending at least 50% of their working time in a different state, in that case, this would not apply to you. So anything else you want to add for either of these questions?
I don't think so. I'm reading the second one from Amanda Gittleson. What if we provide a parking benefit, meaning we pay for a spot in the garage? They're hybrid and only come to the office/DC once a week. In this case, you may want to reconsider how you're offering your parking benefits or how you're paying for those spots since they're only coming in once a week. That is still considered providing a parking benefit, so you do need to choose a compliance option. But we're happy to work with you further on what might make the most sense here, practically, financially. But that is considered a parking benefit. If they only come into the office once a week, they may not be considered covered employees if they're living outside of DC. But if they're within DC, they are considered a covered employee.
Yeah, I would say I would also add just as like a theme overall is everyone's circumstances can be unique, and I am very happy to talk with any of you about the specific situation for your organization and figure out what could be like the best fit in terms of compliance options and other strategies to manage transportation at your work site.
Okay.
Cool. If anyone has additional questions, feel free to ask them now.
We will also be available. Let me put our contact information on the screen. Sorry, I have to jump through all these slides again. There's so much content. Reminder again for everyone that might have joined late that we will be sharing the recap. So if you need to grab a link or need to revisit any part of this webinar, that will go out in the recap that we send out. If you register for this webinar, which all of you who are participating on this call have, you will receive that dedicated email. So great. Thank you everyone for attending.